Hey Spuds, it's Jamie, welcome back to another video, first video on the channel, I don't know, but welcome either way. I'm very glad to have you here, and today we are back with the second installment of straight people asking LGBT plus people questions, or LGBT plus themed questions that they just want answers on. So kind of maybe the questions that some people who are not part of the community are too scared to ask, or are not sure who to ask. And so there is quite a small subreddit. There's not a huge amount posted on it, otherwise I would make these videos more often, because I think it's a really good way of like opening up communication and making people not scared to learn more by asking questions that maybe they've been a little bit worried to. Obviously there's questions that are just downright nosy and rude, but a lot of the time when people want to ask questions about something they don't understand, it's genuinely coming from a place of like, I would really just like to know more and be a better ally, blah blah blah. And I think that's what a lot of these ones are. So I thought that there are some great responses on the subreddit itself, but I really like having a read, giving my perspective on it, hearing your perspectives on it, and just sharing the information. Ta-da! Are you ready? Let's just crack on with it. So the first one is trans related, very fitting. Also, this jumper is like very transy today. So is this an accurate description of what it feels like being trans? Okay. I've never heard somebody who's not trans be like, hey, is this the right way to describe being trans? When talking to transphobes or uneducated people who don't understand why someone would want to change their gender, is it accurate to tell them, don't imagine it being like you changing to the opposite gender. Imagine you already are stuck in the body of the opposite gender and you want to change your body to the gender you are now. Right, okay, so this would be like if this question was asked by a cis guy who's like,
why is somebody changing their gender?
And then somebody says to them, hey, cis man, you are a man. Yes, you are still a man, but now suddenly, oh my God, you gave me a fright. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
So sorry.
Oh my God. Sorry, the shower came to tell me about a fox that's limping in our garden, although he seems fine now, and I got a fright. Sorry. Suddenly, oh my God, you gave me a fright. Oops. Anyway, where was I? So basically, let's say cis man has said,
why would someone want to change their gender? Rah, rah, rah.
And then this person has said, well, imagine you, cis man, feels exactly as you are feeling right now in terms of who you are, but you are in the body of a cis woman. What would you do? How would you feel? I see where they're coming from. I definitely think it's a description of being trans that not every trans person would agree with, because it's the whole implication of like wrong body, or there being something wrong. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Personally, I had gender dysphoria. I did not feel right about my body because my gender was different to my assigned birth sex. So I changed my body to alleviate those negative feelings of dysphoria. So to me, there was something that I wanted to change. But at the same time, I think we're definitely trying to move away from that whole like born in the wrong body vibe, because there's nothing wrong with being trans. Some trans people medically transition, some don't, and are still trans, and there is nothing wrong with their body. I think it's better to view it as like being trans is just a different way of being a man, being a woman, being a person in this world, and it's expanding those umbrella terms of man and woman to accommodate that it's not all down to chromosomes and reproductive organs and physical appearance and genitals. It's also to do with your gender, like, and you know, the gender you are, and trans people fitting into those definitions of men and women, and then obviously we have non-binary people as well. For me, what it feels like being trans would be more a description of what gender dysphoria feels like, because being trans is just who I am. It's really difficult to describe it, but so it's easier to describe the actual element of it that caused me discomfort and caused me to do something, like for me personally, caused me to do something about my body and have surgery and take hormones, and that was dysphoria. And like, I read a really good description that's, imagine you have a pair of shoes and you're wearing this pair of shoes, they fit. You can walk in this pair of shoes, but they're just really uncomfortable. You can't stop thinking about it, and you just wish that there was something you could do, but everybody's telling you your shoes are perfectly fine. What's wrong with your shoes? You're wearing shoes, your shoes fit, you can walk in your shoes, what's the problem? Until suddenly, one person just says, you know, you're wearing two left shoes, right? And it's like, oh my God. Or you're wearing your shoes on the wrong feet, and so you can just take them off and swap your shoes around, and that's like a very simplified version of the transitioning process to me, and then you feel a lot better about it. It's this kind of undercurrent of constant discomfort and not understanding what it is and why it's there. And for some people it's very, very extreme, and for other people it's quite mild, and that's how I would describe it. If you're not trans yourself, I'd be very careful about trying to describe the trans experience or what it feels like to be trans to other not trans people, because that's definitely stepping into territory where you're making a lot of assumptions, or you're basing it off of a trans person that's told you their personal experience and everything. And then if you are a trans person describing what it feels like to be trans, I think it really can differ depending on the person. So when I talk about what it feels like, that description I just gave, that's for me personally. It's not going to fit every trans person. There will be a bunch of trans people that read the description in this question and they're like, no, that is how it feels like to me, that's accurate for me, but it's not going to be accurate for everybody. So like, I'd say if you're not trans, I would be very careful and probably not try to describe what it feels like to be trans. Woohoo! I don't know why that required a woohoo, sorry. How do I stop misgendering my cousin? Okay, this is a very interesting question. How do I stop misgendering? Is it like accidental? I've always been supportive of my cousin, especially when transitioning. I can he, him, and name all day long when he's not there with me. In person, I catch myself dead naming and she, her. Oh, in person. I apologize when I catch myself and correct myself. I just feel like I seem disrespectful to him. Is it something that will go away with time? Do I practice with him? It really is when he is with me. That's really interesting. I'm just processing. Obviously, okay, firstly, yes, it is something that will go away with time. I don't think you're being disrespectful, because clearly you have a want to not misgender and it's only happening at a certain context, and you are supportive and you are there. This is not a respect issue. You're not doing anything wrong, and like with practice and time, it will you will stop misgendering, at least for the most part. I'm really curious about why it happens when they're together, because I personally found, I mean, it's very difficult to know what people are saying when you're not around unless people tell you, which didn't happen a huge amount, but from what I could gather, people put more of an effort in when they saw me than when they didn't, and were more likely to mess up when I wasn't in front of them. So it's really interesting to hear it the other way around. I wonder if it's just different people, different brains, different way of working. Maybe it's because visually, when you get that cue, because of how you've referred to them previously and for, you know, significantly longer than using he, him and their current name, maybe it's just that habit when they're in front of you. But yeah, I'm intrigued by that, because I wonder why it's different depending on whether they're there or not. Anybody else with experience on this, please leave your comments and your advice below. But really, overall, how you stop misgendering is honestly just practice. If you want to not misgender somebody, eventually you will get to a point where you just need to break the old habit and build the new habit, and you'll be there and it's fine. How can someone be attracted to a certain gender? Isn't everyone pan? Oh, this one is super interesting. So like, there's somebody who's confused that people can be gay or straight. Okay, so in my understanding, if a man is attracted to another man, trans or cis, then he is gay. Like, well, not just another man, but if a man is exclusively attracted to other men, then he is gay. But what would he be attracted to besides the character or the genitals, assuming a trans man without gender confirming surgery? Okay, right. So if he would be attracted to the genitals, as in liking vaginal sex and not liking penises, but I thought we were talking about a man attracted to another man. Shouldn't he be considered straight in that sense? I'm so confused. But of course, people are more than genitals, yes. Plus, on a non-sexual level, that would obviously doesn't matter. Right. Yes, but if he is attracted to the character, shouldn't he be pan? I just don't understand how someone can be romantically attracted to just one gender. But then you'll probably have a bunch of like straight people and gay people going, I don't understand how people can be in any way attracted to more than just one gender. As you know, it's often difficult to understand the lenses of other people and how other people live and see the world. So people can be gay, people can be straight, people can be pan, people can be bi, people can be all sorts of different sexual orientations and attracted to one gender, two genders, more than two genders, like everybody. It's just variation within people. I'm trying to break this. I honestly, I don't fully understand this question. My interpretation is they're saying, this feels like a very convoluted way. Sorry, I'm still trying to figure it out in my brain. This feels like a very convoluted way of them saying, with trans people existing, anybody who could be attracted to a trans person, wouldn't they be pansexual? Which is like very like just no trope. You don't have to be pansexual to find trans people attractive, okay? What they're saying is take a man who's attracted to men, identifies as gay, but under that attraction is also trans men. They're like, surely that means he's just attracted to the character of the person, not the genitals, because there could be a pre-surgery or like a trans man who doesn't want lower surgery. That's kind of what I'm getting from this. So they're like, if genitals don't matter, then why not just be pansexual, because surely it's just down to character. The definition I understand of pansexual is that it's like gender doesn't matter. It's about the person, not their identity. And just taking genitals out of the equation doesn't achieve that definition. This is very difficult to answer. Trans men are still men regardless of genitals. Like, I'm sure that very few people are just attracted to somebody's genitals, and your gender does impact other things about your life. Not always and not greatly, but it can impact things like just who you are and the way you hold yourself and other elements of your physical appearance. It's not just genitals. I think I'm a little bit confused because I'm very thrown by the fact that somebody is doing the exact opposite of like bi and pan erasure, and they're like, everybody's pansexual. I'm sure people can answer this much better than me, but it's like, you don't have to be pan to find trans people attractive. You can not be interested in genitals and not be pansexual. That makes sense. So genitals might not matter to you, but gender might matter to you, and those are different things. That's my answer. Boo. What should I do if I feel like I reacted wrong to someone coming out? I'm intrigued by this because my automatic reaction was like, well, if you were homophobic, I would try and apologize and correct that. But if you weren't, then did you react wrong? I have a friend who I love and respect come out as transgender to me and my friends a couple months ago. To be fully fair, I should have definitely picked up the signs she was giving, but when she came out to me, I was so shocked. But I didn't want to make a big deal out of it because it already looked like it was very hard for her to say. I simply responded, thank you for letting us know. It's not your responsibility to have picked up on signs though. Like, I wouldn't feel bad about that. And then walked away. I was really trying to be respectful, but I don't know, I feel like it could have come across the wrong way. I'm still pretty close to her, but I know that the little things like that get her really upset, and I've tried to help her emotionally, but I don't know what to do about it. She understandably doesn't love to talk about the day she came out, and I don't want to bring it up, but I want to make it clear that I support her. What do you think I should do? I think from most of the people I told that were like friendship level, I didn't get much more than oh cool, thanks for letting us know. Like, to me, that very much just signifies that's information that we have on board, we're totally chill with it, let's just move on with being friends. Like, there is nothing more. And then I guess like the one thing that you could have added that might have helped somebody who wasn't sure how their friends were feeling or wasn't sure how much they wanted to talk about it or how much their friends would want to talk about it with them would just be like, thank you for letting us know, we're here for you. If you know, if you want to talk about it ever, then let us know, kind of vibe. But I don't think that's like a necessity. I feel like if you want to make sure, I personally feel like you didn't do anything wrong. I think if she's given hints that maybe she does feel like something wrong was done, it's worth just addressing it and being like, hey, I've realized that X, Y, and Z has happened, or you said these things, and I'm really sorry if this came out the wrong way. I want to let you know that I fully support you. You can have a conversation like that, just see how she's feeling about it. I do understand that wanting to like open up the conversation about something difficult that you're not sure if she's comfortable speaking about. I think that's very respectful of you. If you want her to know that you support her, you can do it with actions without it having to be a conversation. I'm sure you're doing it through things like respecting her name and pronouns that she wants to have used. I'm assuming she uses she, her pronouns. I'm hoping so, because that would be a really great way to show that you support. And just generally like still being friends and still being there and like not treating her different or weird or like there's something wrong, you know? I think that's the best way. Like, honestly, it was through the actions of my friends that made me realize the most that they supported me. Because there's some people that can say to your face, gush about how much they support you and then never talk to you again because they're too afraid to let you know how they really feel, or you know, they felt like they had to overcompensate for their lack of acceptance but didn't want to hurt you, and then they just end up hurting you anyway. So the fact that you're like, thank you for letting us know, and you are still very much friends and you're still there for her, I don't think that would go unnoticed. I'm always just like, talk to people. If you're worried about something, then just say, like, I hope I reacted in the right way. I support you, and I really want you to know that. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I just wanted to make sure you know I'm here for you. But that's for me. Like, I don't know how your friend would respond. That's just what I would appreciate and / do. What does gender dysphoria feel like? That's the whole question. I feel like we covered it with the whole shoe analogy. It's just
Uncomfortable.
like, and for me it was just this sense of like desperately wanting to be able to like bust out of the skin I'm in into what I'm comfortable in, as not being able to, and it being this really long process where like dysphoria gradually got chipped away rather than just being obliterated in the way I wanted it to be. It's just like, to me personally, just uncomfortable. Just like constantly something is not sitting right all the time, and then gradually you can do things that help with that feeling. Why are people saying that kids shouldn't transition? Honestly, mostly I think it's out of fear and not understanding what it means for someone who is a kid to transition. I totally get that kids shouldn't be jumping into surgeries while they're still growing up. And that's like the big thing, like that, because that's what's not happening. When most people say,
I don't think kids should be transitioning,
they're imagining like 7-year-olds having surgery and getting put on hormones, which is just not happening. And those hormone blocker things, what if they switch gears later, right? Hormone blockers are totally reversible. There is not a problem with going on hormone blockers. If kids go on hormone blockers at an appropriate age, like as they're starting puberty, that's typically around the ages of like 12 to 14. If they do switch gears later, they stop taking the puberty blockers and puberty naturally just kicks in and ta-da, all done. But here's what I don't quite catch. Why not let them transition at all? I mean, there's different ways to do it, socially, medically, physically. Kids could at least tell people they're planning to switch genders and get the right pronouns. Back when I was identifying as a trans dude, oh, interesting, I stopped taking testosterone before it could really work its magic on me. Sure, now I've got more body hair and slower hair growth, but that's cool with me. As a kid, being a boy was my jam, and mum was cool with it, even though she knew I flip-flop faster than a girl trying on outfits. This is written very interesting. My take, let kids give the social transition a shot, and then they can make the big call once they hit 18. Yes, but I don't see why there's a problem. In terms of like, the social transition, absolutely allow kids to socially transition. Why wouldn't you? I find it very bizarre that people think kids shouldn't be allowed to socially transition. In terms of medical stuff, I think at where the age becomes appropriate and all the experts agree and the child agrees and everybody agrees, why not let them take the reversible puberty blockers? If I was able to take puberty blockers, that would have been amazing. Unfortunately, I did not figure things out soon enough, and even if I had, the chances of getting puberty blockers are like so minuscule. And then in terms of like make the big call once they hit 18, you can't have trans-related surgery in the UK at least until you're 18 anyway. I believe in the States some people, like a very, very, very small amount of people can get it when they're 16 and 17. I don't know if that requires some form of parental consent. I'm not really sure how things like that work in the States, but it's a very small minority of people that have anything under 18 like that. But hormones, you're basically saying like, let's not let trans people like start puberty until they're 18. I started hormones when I was 17. I know plenty of other people who did. The youngest in the UK you can start is 16. So like my viewpoint is absolutely let kids socially transition, puberty blockers when appropriate, hormones when appropriate, surgery when it's appropriate. Like it all differs between the different kids. Obviously I don't think that 9, 10, 11-year-olds should be having surgery and having hormones. I definitely think that is like a mid-teens for hormones and then late teens for any surgery at the earliest. But I don't understand people who are like only socially transitioning until 18, because that's a rough spot. If a kid knows they're trans from when they're like 4 or 5 years old and they've been socially transitioning for all of that time until they're 18, and they're having to watch themselves go through this wrong puberty, it's just going to make them so miserable, and there's so much work to do to reverse that. And there's significantly more trans kids that go through the wrong puberty than there are kids who are on puberty blockers and then regret going on them. So I definitely think that there should be access to puberty blockers. They've been used in precocious, like early onset puberty in cis kids for a really, really long, like decades, and nobody's ever had an issue with them. It's only now because they're being used to help trans kids that people are like, specifically just for trans kids still. They don't care about the cis kids who are on puberty blockers. They're like...
Trans kids should not be on puberty blockers.
What I mean is people with that opinion have a problem with trans kids being on puberty blockers, not with puberty blockers. Although in all their arguments against trans kids going on puberty blockers, it's because they don't like puberty blockers specifically, but then have that same energy for all kids that can be on puberty blockers. Anyway, that's my answer to that one. Let's move on. Would it be gay to date someone who is completely transitioned? It depends. Really depends on your gender and their gender. If they're the same, then yeah, bit gay. If they're different, then no. But you could be bi or pan. By completely transitioned, I mean being trans in a hypothetical future where your body can be completely transitioned to a completely female form, as if you were female since birth, like on a DNA level of female. So they're only talking about trans women. I assume they're coming at this from an angle of like a cis guy who's straight dating a trans woman, not just implants and 3D printed organ transplants. Why do people make up hypothetical scenarios around trans people so often? I'm so confused. Do you think the concept of giving names to sexualities would still exist in such a future? Why would trans people affect that? I am lost. I mean, you could become anything, do anything. Do you think we would need to express a preference when the only part that isn't interchangeable is the human engram, or more simply, the human mind, its experience, and the personality crafted as a response to said experience? I feel like this person wants to create a sci-fi movie. This is significantly different and deeper than the initial question implied. And by express preference, I mean openly expressed preference, like saying you wouldn't date someone because you were gay or something like that. I'm really trying. I cannot see how this hypothetical future of a way to transition would impact sexuality labels. I really don't understand that. Whether or not you date trans people, if you're dating trans people who are the same gender as the cis people you would date. So if you are a cis man who is straight, dates cis women, and then you would be open to dating a trans woman, that doesn't make you gay or bi. It doesn't change your sexuality because you are still dating a woman. Just a woman who has a slightly different experience of being a woman and womanhood, but it doesn't make her less of a woman. I'm just really baffled as to how this would change anything, because it doesn't change things now, and it's just transphobia that impacts things. Oh no, this one's I'm too tired. This one has genuinely given me a headache. If anybody has something to add that is more profound than what I've been able to say, then I would really love to hear it, because I feel like I've just failed on this one. So if you can transition in a way that makes it seem like you're cis, would we need sexuality labels anymore? It would be parallel to like if we had a world where trans people genuinely didn't exist and everyone was cis, would we need sexuality labels? Trans people are not the reason for us having labels for sexuality and expressing preferences. Are you trans if you're non-binary? Sorry if this question has already been asked, and I will state that I'm not straight. However, I do not personally know any trans or non-binary people. Okay, so cis, not straight person asking a question. I am not non-binary myself, so I can't answer this from a personal perspective, and I have seen the answer differ depending on who you ask. From like a purely like definitions perspective, you would need to ask individuals, but the definitions, like trans is an umbrella that means on the different side of. So you are trans if your gender does not match your assigned birth sex. So if you're non-binary, then your gender does not match your assigned birth sex. So under that definition, you would be trans. But I have heard of some non-binary, a majority, I believe, do identify as trans, but I have heard of some non-binary people not identifying with the term trans or not wanting to identify as trans. But technically, under the definition, being non-binary would fit the definition of being trans. Another trans question. My trans cousin has been taking tea. Will his voice drop naturally, eventually, or will he have to train his voice to be deeper? We were talking about this the other day and I got curious he didn't know the answer. I assume it's just like AMAB going through puberty and the voice drop, but I don't know. I feel like that is something that your cousin should know the answer to. Yes, testosterone will make your voice drop naturally. I don't think I've ever heard of somebody taking tea and just not having their voice drop at all. There's obviously individual variations, just like there is with cis men, where some cis men have higher voices than others and some have really, really deep voices and all of this stuff. That happens with trans men too. But testosterone, it's one of the, in my opinion, like it was one of the changes I was most after, was it dropping my voice. Testosterone will make your voice deeper. To which extent will depend on you as an individual and your genetics and how you respond to testosterone and all of this stuff. You can do voice training as well if you want to, but I don't know any trans guys on T who have done voice training. I'm sure there are. I'm not saying there aren't any. It's not technically a necessity, just some people may choose to do it. but testosterone should do a lot of the work itself.
Insulting straight people.
I'm a cis-het woman and a lot of my friends are queer. How do you feel about straight people using the word, well, cis-het people using the word queer? I would feel intrigued because it is a reclaimed slur and it's reclaimed by the LGBT plus community. I would be a bit like thrown if I just had a cis-het person like say the word queer to like in reference to me or like other LGBT plus people. I'd be like, oh, that's thrown me slightly. I'm an ally and I've always been careful to make sure everyone around me feels comfortable. However, these friends constantly make jokes, borderline insults about straight people to the point of me feeling a little hurt. I have opinions. I know that it was probably meant to be lighthearted or a way for them to bond as being queer, but when it's nearly constant and getting more and more hurtful as time goes on, I'm starting to wonder if it would be inappropriate to ask them to tone it down, especially when they start saying that some of my opinions on things don't matter because I'm straight. Depends on what those things are. I would not expect my opinion on certain topics, and I wouldn't give my opinion on certain topics that pertained to a group in society that I was absolutely not a part of. I also don't like that they use the term Heti to describe heterosexual people. It sounds derogatory and is usually used as an insult, at least by them. Is there any advice for how I can handle this? I don't want to come off as discriminatory or make them feel silenced, but I'm still hurt by this and it makes me not want to hang out with them at all for fear of them making a hurtful comment. How do I feel about this? I feel like in any context, the friends you hang out with, it's not nice if they're saying things that make you feel hurt. So I think you're within your right, absolutely, to express to your friends that some of the things they're saying are causing you hurt. It depends on if it's directed like at you or kind of at like the straights, and if it's an in-joke, if it's reclaiming power over people who typically do the oppressing, right? The oppressive majority. It's something that like I definitely do with like my trans and LGBT plus friends. Not any particular person, but just playful jokes, taking back some power, nothing derogatory. And I'm curious about exactly what they're saying, because I think there's definitely a border between it just being a kind of in-joke and nothing hurtful, and then it actually just being a bit shitty. And so if they're being a bit shitty and it really is causing a lot of hurt, then you know, I would mention it and have a discussion with them. It's not about telling them to like stop doing this. It's about saying, this is how X has made me feel. Could we have a chat about like where that's come from on your side, and I can let you know why it's hurt me, and there can be an open discussion about where you're both coming from, and maybe you might understand a bit better about why they make those comments and those jokes, and they might understand a bit better the line between it being a reclaiming moment for them tipping over into just being a bit hurtful and like borderline bullying sometimes. I have no idea the specificities of what's happened. I'm not saying anybody is or isn't, but the bit about like, especially when they start saying that some of my opinions on things don't matter because I'm straight, I would be really curious to hear what that is. Because if you're talking about like, do you like Italian food, and they're like, oh, you can't have an opinion on Italian food because you're straight, then that's like irrelevant, and they're just they're having a joke, but if it annoys you, then let them know. But if you're talking about like what it's like to be LGBT plus, or it's kind of within that frame of things, and you have an opinion about things that should or shouldn't happen to a group of people, or how a group of people feel that you are not a part of, then that's probably justified that they're saying like not your lane kind of vibe. It's a tricky thing because regardless of whether a group saying the things is marginalized or not, it's never right to have like bullying or insulting or derogatory behavior towards other people. But sometimes there's just in groups and light-hearted joking around, there's a reclaiming of power over people who have been oppressing them and taking away rights. It could also be that when they are saying these things, they are thinking specifically of like certain types of cishet straight people. They're thinking of certain types of cishet people that have caused them hurt directly, and certain groups who have caused them hurt directly, and that's who they're talking about. It's important not to be like, well, not all straight people kind of thing. I think I kind of sit in the middle on this one. Yeah, it's difficult I'm trying to make a judgment on the information I've been given, but it's very difficult to make a full opinion without knowing specifically how far the friends have pushed it. Bullying and insulting is like, I don't personally like that, but if it's towards a specific group and they're making jokes and they're specifying, like, oh, the straights, like, blah, 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 then they're referring to people who are like homophobic or bigoted, and it's just a in-joke about it. Yeah, tricky one, I think. And to wrap it up, we're not getting any lighter on the questions. Why is there so much hate towards religion in the community? I'm atheist and straight, but I noticed that many LGBT people hate religious people. Why? I haven't seen many religious people degrade LGBT people. I'm curious about where this person is looking, that they're seeing more hate from LGBT plus people towards religious people than they're seeing homophobia coming out of religion. Like, I'm intrigued by that, because the reason why I wouldn't say that LGBT plus people, like, as a whole, hate religious people. I think there is a cautiousness from LGBT plus people around religion. I definitely have it. I will put my guard up if I know somebody is highly religious, because so often, constantly in my life, both in real life and online, religion has been used against me in a way to justify bigotry. Like, people have been incredibly hateful, incredibly hurtful, and justified it in their heads to make themselves feel better about it and not feel like they're bad people by saying that their religion is telling them to have those opinions, and using their religion as a shield for just being hateful. So a lot of LGBT plus people have also experienced this and have a very strong guard up when it comes to religion. It's not a hate, it's a self-protection thing, where it's like, whoa, I think it's a very interesting take to say there is absolutely hate that comes out of religion. It doesn't need to. It's the way certain people interpret it and certain groups of people interpret religion. Religion can absolutely be an open environment. There can be very supportive religious people. There are lots of LGBT plus religious people, and that's fine. But so often, so many people, it's what they use as their excuse. A lot of the transphobia I have faced has been excused away with religion. And so it makes it a difficult topic, and until I know somebody is actively supportive, I will be guarded around someone who's very religious, or I'll be very guarded to try and protect myself in environments that are very religious. I don't think there's hate, there's just a lot of apprehension and caution from LGBT plus people towards religion. Yeah. And on that note, that summarizes the video. That was very formal. That's the end of the video, folks. We're all done for the day. I don't know why I called you folks, just spuds. Little potatoes. How do we like this video? What do you think? Go leave your advice and your comments and your opinions down below. It's absolutely okay for us to disagree. All of this is coming from my perspective and my lens and the identity I have and the experiences I've had in my life. So I'd be very interested to hear from other people and how you would answer these questions and if you agree with me or not. And yeah, think about giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to, and maybe clicking that little join button to become a member of the channel. You can be part of the Spud Squad. You can be a little tater tot. I think tater tots are so cute. But yeah, no pressure to do any of that. I'm just letting you know the options available if you want them to be. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.